Hey everybody, I am really excited to show you the newest version of the polysequencer. So I've added a lot of new features on this version, and probably the most noticeable is it actually has its own internal clock. So you have a tempo control knob to change the BPM of the sequence, as well as tap to tap in your BPM as well. It still works with gate in, gate out, just like previous versions of polysequencer, as well as MIDI clock in and MIDI clock out. So you have a bunch of different ways that you can clock the device and to sync it to other gear. I've also added the ability to transpose your sequences, as well as the ability to add ties to your sequence. One of my favorite aspects of this version of polysequencer is I actually give the user the ability to change the sequence type. So on all previous versions of polysequencer, per step you're able to record up to 5 notes with one velocity message as well as one CC message. But now you can completely change this, and I'll show you a chart of all the different modes I have so far. But today I'm going to focus on mode 3, which is 1 note, 1 velocity, and 3 CC messages, which gives you the ability to add a lot of motion control to pretty much any MIDI-enabled device. So today I'm going to use the Moog Little Fatty to help demo the polysequencer. And what's really great about this synthesizer is it has LEDs surrounding the knobs, which makes it really clear to see CC changes as they happen. And as you can see, the Little Fatty is hooked up to the Poly with both MIDI in and MIDI out. So because the Little Fatty is acting as the host as well as receiving the playback, we want to make sure we turn off the MIDI through to off. And lastly, the polysequencer takes a 9-volt DC power supply with center positive polarity. Okay, so it's really easy to record a sequence onto the polysequencer. You just press the record button, and then you just start playing the sequence that you want it to play back. And the way it works is you increment to the next step once all notes have been released. So today we're only going to do a monophonic sequence, but if you're going to do polyphonic, once you've released all notes as part of your chord, then the polysequencer will increment to that next step. So let's just do something really simple. So once you're done, you press stop, and then that sequence is stored, and then you can press play once again to start the sequence. So if you want to add a tie to your sequence, as you're holding down that note, you can press the record button and it'll add a tie. So let's try that. So as I'm holding that note, I'm going to press the record button and add some ties. Okay, I'm done. We'll press stop, and then let's listen to playback. So if you want to add a rest to your sequence, instead of playing a note, you just press the record button. So let's record. Okay, we'll do stop, and then listen to that back. And lastly, as you're recording your sequences, you can also add CC messages. Okay, so now I want to show the difference between these 3 modes. So let's do something a little bit more musical this time. So we're going to record a sequence. Okay, we'll go ahead and stop, and then let's listen to that back. Okay, so the first type that I would like to show is transpose. So basically, as the sequence is playing, you can press a different note and it'll transpose that sequence to that note. Pretty basic. Okay, the next mode I want to show is override. So what's really cool about this is as the sequence is playing, you can either select new notes during playback, or you can also record different CC changes. And because our sequence type allows up to 3 CC, you have a lot of availability to do all sorts of different CC. So let's try that next. next, let's go ahead and do interrupt. So basically what interrupt does is as a sequence is playing, you can play over it and essentially interrupt the sequence, but your CC changes will remain intact. So also there's a few quick features that I'd like to explain. So you can also save your sequence to memory, and the way you do this is hold record and then press the stop play button. Both LEDs will blink, and the sequence will be retained after you've restarted the device. You can also see we have a few subscripts in the division section here. So this top one, if you hold the record button, it'll actually clear out all CC designated by the CC with the slash through it. So you hold, and then eventually it'll blink, and then you've just cleared your CC, but the notes are retained. The next one down is, you can see the subscript is 64 and then 128. If these are selected and you hold record, it'll generate a blank sequence of 64 or 128 respectively.